everyone, I'm Nikki and I have 3 different cards today from the new Simon Says stamp release. So I'm going to take you through some of these products and I'll take you through making these cards. I will time code the video so that if you're looking for one of the specific cards and how it was made, you could go look at that. We're going to start with this new stamp called So Many Presents. It has tons of presents and it's got a little area cut out where you can stamp individual presents, or you could just remove that and put a sentiment. The next are these bold birthday acetate. So it's sheets of acetate with really dark writing on it. And I've used this in a couple of ways on my projects. I feel like there's going to be lots of cool ways to use this, but I'm going to show you 2 different ways that I did and how I got it to stick on the paper without being able to see any adhesive behind that acetate. So here is the Pawsitively Velvet. So this is just a sample pack that has 4 colors in it. It's got a green, you can kind of see the red there. Of course I used all the red, a beautiful black, and a white, and I think there was also a cream color that I used as well. Sorry about that, but that's what I have left in the pack, and I'm telling you, this stuff cuts on a die cutting machine perfectly. I was a little worried it wouldn't cut out right. It is amazing. So we're going to look at 3 projects with this, and I'm going to start with my absolute favorite, which is the watercolor card, and just give you a brief overview of how I created it and how these products work. Make sure you hit the subscribe and like button on this video. That helps me out so much, and most of the people watching my videos are not subscribed. I will be creating some more projects for Simon Says Stamp in the next month or so, so if you love their products, make sure you hit the notifications button and it will let you know when a new video comes out. We're going to start with this large background stamp called So Many Presents. I am using my MISTI. I have taken the foam piece out of the MISTI so that I've got more room with this type of stamp. When you're using a rubber stamp, you need to do that. So I've done that, and then we're going to stamp it in a beautiful black ink. I am using watercolor paper, and I'm going to heat emboss this. So I did powder the whole area, so lots and lots of powder, and then I'm going to stamp with a Catherine Pooler ink called Midnight. You could use any dark black ink for this that's good with heat embossing. So I like to, instead of heat embossing with black, I love to stamp in black and then add clear heat embossing to it. So this is just the first pad that was on my desk. I really like using the VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. That is also a great black, and it's very good with heat embossing. You do want to give these stamps good pressure, and I usually stamp them a couple of times, and mainly because I don't want to lay down a ton of ink and accidentally get it on my background if I'm pressing hard. So I just gently tap, and then I do this a couple times. Then we are going to add our beautiful clear embossing, which really makes this black pop off the back of the page. I used Wow clear embossing powder over this, and it did great. This is a large piece, so my usual coffee filter thing, I probably should have gotten a piece of paper or something to catch this extra embossing powder. So I did make a little bit of a mess, but it is really cool and the process is so worth it. So I go along and I make sure I've got everything covered, and then I'm going to show you what it looks heat embossed. Once it's heat embossed, then I'm going to start my watercolor process. I actually decided I would cut out individual presents for this cute little thing. So you can do that with a scan and cut, you can fussy cut, but I just cut out some different sizes of these presents, and it gives me so many options. I can make a ton of cards if I cut them all out, but I'm going to cut out what I need, and then we're going to watercolor those individual pieces, and then I'll show you how I made that background and how I used the acetate. All right, here's all those presents cut out. Now I've got to decide what colors I'm going to use. So I grabbed re-inkers from something that I have rainbow colors in. I happen to have it in the Catherine Pooler. I have most of my re-inkers in Catherine Pooler. So I grabbed it, and then I'm going to decide on which rainbow colors I'm going to use, and then I will use these same re-inkers to create that really cool watercolor background. So with the re-inkers, you need one drop, and a watercolor pen is the easiest way. You could do this with a brush as well, but this way I can add a slow amount of water. I like to cover a little present with water, and then I'm going to bring my color in, add just a drop of water from my pen to kind of smooth it out, and then I'm going to add a layer of color. I'm trying to keep my presents, they're all one color, and I want to have a shadow effect to them. So I want to color them in basically with the color, but then I want to add some little highlights, and I've already kind of decided that my highlight would be the center of the presents, and around the edges would be slightly darker. I just love that look, and it almost to me makes it like it's some kind of like it's a focal point, you know, like looking at the middle of those presents is brighter, and so I like to do that. So you can easily add just a little bit more darkness, and then you can always, if you mess up, you can just add water because it spreads out so easily. So these are pretty easy to do. It is a little bit of detail work just going through and coloring each one, but you only have to do 7 or 8 presents and you've got your rainbow, probably not even that many. And so I'm going to go around, do these. I will skip through the rest of this process and we'll show you how I did the watercolor wash on the back of this. Let's create this insane background. So I started, now you could do a whole sheet and that'd probably be easier, but I was gonna see if I could keep it all one layer. I did eventually decide that I didn't want to keep it all one layer, but I go along a line and add some water and let it kind of drip down. See how it's making a drip effect? And then I'm gonna take those re-inkers and I'm gonna add drops in my rainbow order. So we're gonna start with the pink. This is a little bit of a process, but man, the results are amazing. And so I just kind of start getting it to flow with this re-inker, make sure I've got enough color where I want it, and then grab that spray bottle again. So like I said, this works with any ink, and you just need watercolor paper. That really helps. So I'm going to spray and add water. Now I'm not going to overly drench this because I'm going to come in with my next color, and I kind of collect my water at the bottom, but I'm going to come in with the next color and add it and add some spray. So keep your colors in order so you don't get confused, because this orange and yellow re-inker look very similar. So I'm kind of going up above this, and I'm okay if this runs into the other part, because you see it kind of covers up the pink color, but it also gives it a nice blend. So I'm letting that run down the card. It does take a little patience. I'm coming in with my yellow and going on and putting it there. After this point, I may need to add a little bit of water. So I'm going to go spray. Just when I start getting those really obvious streaks like that, I add a little bit of water. And I do dry it up off the bottom because I don't want it all to pool right there. And then I'm going to give this a second and we'll get started with the next. I've decided I needed a little bit more pink on this edge. So I'm going to go in and add a little bit more of that, and you can spray it with the water, just being careful. But the water really takes away that streaky look from it. The one thing that I really love about watercolor is it's very hard to mess up. And sometimes when you're looking at it, it seems like it's such a mess, but when it dries, it looks gorgeous. So I'm going to show you a couple things that I did that made some mistakes on this and how I fixed them. So let's go ahead and get our green down. I make the mistake with the blue, and I'm going to show you what I do. I wish I could have a camera angle from another way where you could see me spray in and how much that works. It looks awesome. So we're going to go with our next blue. So as the cardstock gets drier towards this end, I probably should have gone and just added a little bit more water. It's taking me a little bit more spray to get the color moving, and that's where my mistake happens. So I'm going to do this blue, and then I will show you. I got a little close on the blues and kind of sprayed some of the pigment onto the lighter pinks and the oranges over there. So I get too close and I'm trying to let this go, but I end up getting a little overly zealous with the water. So remember how far away you are makes a difference. So I got a little close, and those are really bright pigments. So can you see right here where I got some blue in the other colors? If you haven't ventured into watercolor, it is so forgiving. So when I got a really thick line, because I knew that pigment was dark, I used a brush and just kind of thinned out my purple line. Now I do have a paper towel down here. I need to get a lot of this excess water off before I do any fixing of this. So get yourself some good paper towels and use those. It's not going to hurt. It's just kind of make sure that that pigment dries at the end. It is hard to keep the paper flat because it is wet, but I will show you some ways to flatten it out. We're going to lay some heavy things on it. To fix it, I add water. So the yellow and orange fixes pretty easily just by adding water. I probably could have done all of it that way, but I decided I'd add I love the pink color, so I decided I would add some pink and then do a little bit of water spray on that end of the paper, and it fixed it great. So I add another little drop of ink, and then I'm gonna kind of make sure this goes down my side. I'm gonna add some spray and kind of keeping it close so it's spraying off. And I mean, that just completely covers that blue pigment. It disappears. So amazing. Now I need to set this aside and let it dry. So you want to get all excess water off the bottom, and then you're gonna lay it as flat as you can get it, which is kind of hard. If there's a spot you want to fix, like I wanted to kind of thin out this little area, you just add more water. So once it's dry, I cut off this panel, and I'm going to put this on a plain white card front. And then I've got my presents that I'll lay out in order, and that happy birthday acetate, sorry. I love that I can put this happy birthday acetate down a little bit and it looks like you see the rainbow through the letters. I think that is so cool. It looks really good on this card. How did I get this acetate to stay? There's a little area of black right before the H starts, and I used a tape runner and put just a very small amount right there to tape it down, and it worked perfectly. I actually don't normally do this with acetate, but I just wasn't sure. I was afraid that a liquid glue would definitely show through. You would see where it dried, but this worked great. So just one of your tape guns in that small black area works amazing. I'm going to speed this up a little bit, but notice that I use that acrylic block. So since everything is already glued down to the card base, if I don't have that acrylic block to hold the bottom part of the card down, it's going to flip back up and dump my presents off that I'm trying to arrange. So I'm going to put that block down to hold it once I've got things kind of how I want them. And if you don't have one of these, it's something that's really nice to add to your collection. What I did with the presents was I glued down every one. No, not every one, every other one, and then I added some foam tape to the others. So the red one and the yellow and the blue will have a little bit of foam tape behind them to pop up, and it just made this card so precious, so much. I love rainbows. I hope everybody enjoyed this card. Now we're gonna look at the Gnome card, and this Gnome card uses a lot of velvet, which is so fun to use. So I'm going to show you that. We'll go through that card quickly, and then I'll go to the shaker card. So the main feature of this Gnome card is this velvet, and I love the red and the green. I mean, they're all beautiful, but you can really see the texture for the red and green. So I'm going to focus on using that bright red and that white as the beard of this gnome. It's going to be so cute. Okay, let me show you how I did it. It's a quick card. I started with some green cardstock, and one thing about this little gnome die is that I wanted it to be a pretty clean and simple card, and so I need to put my gnome down so that I know where to stamp. It's a little hard when you've got your magnets there because those metal dies want to stick to the magnets, but I'm going to use this Have a Holly Jolly Christmas from this Gina K set, and I like it because it's also a long, tall sentiment, which just kind of highlights my gnome there. So I'm going to use the gnome to figure out where I'm going to place my sentiment, and then I'm going to gold heat emboss it. So I stamped it in watermark ink, I added my gold heat embossing, and now I'm heating it up. I did use a powder tool, as you can see on the background of this, pretty liberally, and I'm going to use a microfiber cloth to wipe that off. Then we're going to add just a little bit of shadow type ink blending to the edge of this. You have several options to blend. You can use the same color, just darker. So this Rustic Wilderness was a darker version of my green cardstock, and this will give a spotlight effect to your card. Now, if you want to make this very dark and very obvious, I would do something like a dark gray or black soot, which is another distress oxide. You've got to be careful with black soot that you don't get it too dark, but if you're a good blender, that is an easy way to do it. If you're not as good of a blender, then doing a color that is the same but ever so slightly darker it may not seem like it at the time. You feel like you're not doing a whole lot, but it looks amazing. It makes a great spotlight effect. It's very subtle, and that's what I'm going to do along this one. This is easy for beginners. Any type of blending tool you have, just going around the edges and making it a little darker really gives you a lot of bang for your buck. Look at how great this looks. Just amazing. So now I'm going to cut out my little gnome with some of this velvet, and the way these dies work I will show you. You need to cut out a couple different pieces, which gives you some options. So I'm going to cut out a red piece, I'm going to cut out a white piece, and the only thing that I don't really have a color for is that nose. So I'm going to cut the nose out of cardstock and just color it in with some Copic markers, but this gives you lots of pieces. You could really put this gnome together in different colors very easily. So just remember to save your pieces because those velvet pieces are beautiful. So the only coloring on this card is this little nose, and I did it in E02, and I didn't do a whole lot of anything because it's such a little piece that you can't really see. I mean, you can see highlights, but it's just hard to color. So I actually had to use tweezers to hold it down and just gave it some good color. Okay, so I used some glitter cardstock. I wanted this to show through his little outfit. So it's got holes in it. You could just make those holes red and put them back in there, or white, but I just love adding that little hint of sparkle to kind of go with our gold. So I just cut this out freehand. So let's put this little guy together. He comes with a shadow or the back piece to him so that you can assemble it correctly. I did leave a little bit of gold sticking up right there, but I know the beard is going to cover that. So I'm using that acrylic block again just to hold it down, make sure that I don't mess up the velvet. I wanted to get good pressure and it gets stuck together. And anytime you're sticking things to glitter, sometimes you need a little extra pressure. So it's always nice to have those blocks for that. Now I'm going to grab the outline. So this little guy comes with an outline. He comes with the pieces that cut out and the outline. So I'm going to glue my pieces to the outline and get everything taken care of. I'm going to speed this up, but I want you to be able to see how easy it is to put this little gnome together. Now this gnome is a Simon Says Stamp exclusive, but it's not in this release, so it's been around for a little while. You know, I said I was going to put the white velvet over that, but I decided to add another piece of white cardstock just to make the beard stick out a little bit more. So just remember, you don't have to have foam tape for everything. You can just add another piece of cardstock. So I just cut out a plain piece of cardstock, and I'm going to glue that to the back of the velvet, and it's going to raise up his beard a little bit, which looks really cute. I know that I'm probably the only one who really notices that, but I think that you notice it in the final project that it just looks more 3D. Look how cute he looks. Oh, just precious. Okay, now I'm going to use some red velvet behind my green cardstock, but I don't want to waste all this red velvet. So I usually go through and I use my scissors. These are perfect 4.25 by 5.5 pieces of velvet. So I'm just going to cut out the extra, make sure I've got plenty of that line around, and you cannot tell that that's not a solid piece back there. And then I can use that beautiful red again for another project. Okay, here's that final card. It's so cute. I just cannot wait to send this to somebody. So next we're going to use our birthday acetate, and so these come in sheets like this. So they're the sheets that fit about an A2 card. I'm going to use some sequins from Simon Says Stamp, and I'm going to use some colors that coordinate with those ink wise, and then we're going to use just some waffle flower dies to cut out a frame so that I can make this into a shaker card. So these are the waffle flower A2 layers die. Really good die set, helps with all kinds of things, and then I coordinated my colors by using 3 Catherine Pooler ink. So right now I'm just going to make a pink outside of this cardstock so that I can cut it into a frame. So I'm using Party Dress, and I'm going to create a pink external part of this, and that is just going to be the frame. Then I'm going to do the background. This background is going to mostly be covered up by your acetate, so you could do it all one color, you could do cardstock, whatever. I just like the fade look, and I felt like it matched the sequins great that way. Okay, I cut my frame out using those Waffle Flower A2 dies. So we've got a pink frame. I need to layer this with double-sided adhesive. So you need a very skinny adhesive because I cut a very skinny frame, and this is dry with the ink. So all I got to do is put the double-sided adhesive on it, and then we're going to add the acetate. It's really nice that this is an A2 size piece of acetate. So now I can get this stuck to it. I'm going to start with one edge. It has clear around these sayings. So I don't know if you can see that, but it is a perfect A2 size. So if you cut with an A2 die, you can create a frame pretty easily and stick it down to this. Now doing this is a little tricky because you want to make sure you've got it correct, but line it up. Make sure you've got your frame how you want it to be, and then if you need to cut off a little extra acetate at the end, you can. Now we've got our acetate stuck to our frame. We need to add very skinny strips of foam tape. So I've got these little skinny strips that fit perfectly behind this, and I'm going to add it all the way around, making sure there's no gaps or anything like that that little sequins can sneak through. So with our foam tape completed, you need to powder the inside edges of your acetate, and this is to keep the sequins from sticking to the edges. A lot of times those edges have a little bit of stickiness to them, so just use whatever powder tool you have and make sure you feel around the edges and don't have any sticky areas before you put this together. The other thing I can feel there's if there's a sticky area with my finger, and then I can add some more powder. So next we are going to add our sequins. You want a reasonable amount of sequins so that you definitely got some of these seen. When you lay it down, you can always shake it up so you see them, but you want to know that there are sequins at the bottom. So you want to make a little pile and spread them out. Now, when we start to do this frame, a frame is tricky with foam tape. And so I'm going to bend down some pieces like this. I'm going to get the top ready so I can line up my top. And then I'm going to bend these to the side so that I can start sticking them and then pull that off. So I got a little piece in there I got to get off, and then I'm going to attach it to the top. It's very sticky and very tricky, and a lot of times you have multiple layers of, so see I've got another one that starts here, so I'm going to make sure I've got all my tabs out, and then I'm going to try to lay this down. And the last tip for this top is to add just a little bit of liquid glue to the top so that if you mess up putting it down, which I do all the time, and you want to be able to slide it just a little bit to make it square, that you can do that. I think that putting a full front of a shaker card on can be tricky, so you want to take your time and be careful with it. And I love having that liquid glue so that if I mess this top area up, which, sorry, you're going to see my hair just a little bit, that I can move it around if needed. Now you can pull your tabs and just lay it down, and it's so much easier. I still am careful that I'm not shaking my sequins underneath where that foam tape's going to go, and that I'm lining it up easy. But hopefully that trick will help you if you are trying to make a shaker card. I hope that you enjoyed these products from the new release. I had so much fun with them. Make sure that if you're going to go shopping today that you go through the links in my description. That really helps me out, and I appreciate you so much. Making these videos for you is so fun for me, but it does cost money to keep a YouTube channel up, so those links will help with that so much. They are affiliate links, they don't cost you anything, and I appreciate all of your support. If you haven't hit subscribe and like yet, please do that for me. I would appreciate it so much. It means a lot to us creators, and I hope all of you have a great day. Have fun looking at this new Simon Says release today.